All right, we're following developments in the high-profile Gilgo Beach murders case. A Frye hearing is underway in Suffolk County to determine whether critical DNA evidence will be admissible at trial. Joining us now, legal analyst Richard Schoenstein, here to help break it down for us. Richard, how are you? Can you explain, first of all, what a Frye hearing is and why this particular one is so significant in this Gilgo Beach case?
Sure. A Frye hearing is a pretrial evidentiary hearing. It's held only with the judge. There's no jury. And the purpose is to determine whether certain evidence would be admissible at trial. And this one is significant because there is purportedly DNA evidence linking hairs that were found with some of the victims of these crimes to hairs of the defendant and/or his family, his wife and daughter. And obviously that kind of connection, finding physical evidence of DNA at the murder scenes, would be highly probative in a trial. So the prosecution really wants to be able to use that evidence, and the defense really wants to keep it out.
Yeah, because this is a big kind of bump in the road here. Now, the prosecution has now rested. The defense began calling their expert witnesses to challenge this scientific validity of the DNA testing methods used by this California lab. Now, the defense argues the method's never been accepted in a New York court of law. So does this part of the argument carry any real legal weight here?
Well, I think that's a decent argument, but remember, every kind of scientific evidence has to be used for a first time sometime. So there are methods that end up being used in court cases. Whether or not it's been used in prior court cases may be relevant, but it's not determinative. If they can prove to the judge that the evidence is reliable enough to present it to the jury, or even prove to the judge that it's a matter of dispute and each side can put on their own expert witnesses and the jury can figure it out, then you go forward with the evidence.
Is it really kind of in layman's terms no different than cold cases that are being solved now based on DNA that can be tested, obviously much more critically now than it could 10, 15, 20 years ago? Is it basically the same premise?
Yeah, I think it's in the same neighborhood. The DNA testing has grown more and more reliable. It's amazing what you can do with DNA evidence. And I'll say also the juries have become conditioned in these kind of cases to expect DNA evidence, because every time they turn on the TV, they see a drama, a legal drama that has DNA evidence in it. So they sort of expect to see it, and that's part of why the prosecution wants to have it.
All right, so once the Frye hearing is complete, regardless of well, let me just ask you first about the outcome. Let's say, how damaging could this be, let's say, if the DNA evidence is ultimately excluded?
Well, it hurts the prosecution's case. This is key evidence that the prosecution wants to put on, but it's not the only evidence. There's a lot of circumstantial evidence. As I understand the case, you have the whole issue of this planning document that was supposedly found on the defendant's computer. You are able to tie, apparently, times his wife and daughter were out of town to the times these murders occurred. There's much more evidence, but the DNA evidence would be very helpful for sure.
And finally, what is next now in this case, ultimately, when the Frye hearing is complete, regardless of the outcome?
So the Frye hearing, I don't think it's going to be completed this week, because my understanding is there's another witness who's going to come on sometime next month. And this isn't like a trial where you have to do it all in one piece. Ultimately, the judge will consider it. The parties will further brief the matter, and the judge will make a decision. I don't think there's a trial date yet. I think towards the end of the year, they're going to set a trial date. And there's one more issue pending, Chris, which is that the defendant wants to split this into 5 or more different trials, a different trial for every victim. And you can understand why the prosecution wants to keep them all together.
Yeah, I was going to say, gear up for a lot of court dates. Okay, Richard Schoenstein, thank you very much. Good to see you, Richard.
Good to see you.